Hello. Hope everyone's doing okay. I'm going to try to get back into topical based videos. I think this would be nice. In today's topic, let's talk about diet. And I mean diet in both the what do you eat type of diet to also the mental diet. And so we'll start with the food one because I think that one's pretty obvious. I think a lot of artists don't recognize the value of eating well, and exercising and moving your body, generally speaking. I think a lot of people who are in our business recognize that sitting down all day and being inactive is not the best for our longevity and just long term health. But whatever you consume is probably contributing a pretty big factor alongside of sedentary behavior. um, so obviously get up, move around, exercise, but if you're also just eating like burgers, chips, snack foods, processed stuff, um, everything that I think most people are obviously aware aren't the best for you, um, it has a cascading effect in even the thing you love the most, which is like making art. So let me put it to you this way. If you were to think about your body as some sort of engine, like a car engine, and some cars run on gasoline, some run on diesel, but you can't just put like vegetable oil into the a car's fuel tank and then all of a sudden have it expected to run well. There are obviously very specific things that go into maintaining a car's ability to like actually have locomotion. Um, but also other things like putting, like or having an oil change, checking for your brakes, all of these things that, uh, you know, the most of us are probably still not doing even for our cars, let alone for our bodies. But again, in this metaphor, the parallel is identical. That's kind of what I'm getting at, which is, you need to be checking the brakes on yourself. You need to be checking the oil. You need to be checking what kind of fuel you're actually putting into your body. And I hear a lot of times students talk about anxieties and depression and frustrations. And one of the things that I tend to recommend, because this is the only thing I can with my knowledge of, mental disorders, I am not a psychiatrist of any kind, but this is pretty common knowledge, which is diet and exercise. Eat well and move around. And some general rules I like to give people is like if you know where your food comes from, then you have a good start on eating well. So for instance, like a potato, you have a good idea where the potato came from. Most vegetables, you have a good idea where most vegetables come from. Um, if you eat meats, all sorts of meats come from different farms, and if you know what kind of farms they're coming from, like you go to like a farmer's market and you're actually talking to the farmer, um, you have better chances of just eating a little bit better. But the biggest takeaway that I would probably throw at folks is simply put, don't eat too much processed food if at all. Don't eat any, you know. And I say don't eat too much because I am not immune to this. It is a challenge, but the less you can consume, the better. And if you can move around and move your body and try to get some level of physical activity and strength training, even, that ultimately will help you as an artist because it is the fuel for the mind. It's the building blocks for your body, so your brain doesn't have to worry about some of the stuff and then manifest some of these emotions or manifest some of the consequences of your lack of health in other ways. And so I highly recommend doing this. These types of things also help stuff more specific to artists like carpal tunnel, joint pains, like all these things is very obvious. The more you try to stay active and eat well, the better your chances are that you won't get some of these other problems that come with the territory. So that's kind of like the biggest one. And again, I'm no diet guru. I'm not gonna give you recipes. I'll tell you kind of stuff that I eat. I eat a lot of vegetables. I try to eat mostly plant-based, with every once in a while some meat. If you look into stuff like the blue zones, there's very clear correlation that people who eat mostly plant-based foods tend to just live longer and have healthier lives, regardless of your opinions about what it is to be a vegetarian, vegan, whatever. I get it. There's a lot of militants that can kind of come from this, and some of it's justified. I get it. Like it comes from this empathetic angle, but it can be a hard pill to swallow and to even respect or listen to these ideas. But trust me when I say that the vast majority of us would just do better if we ate more vegetables, fruits, whole foods, generally speaking. Um, and yeah, I mean, anyone that I know that usually adopts a pretty healthy diet tends to feel pretty good overall. It's pretty consistent. And so, yeah, now let's talk about kind of the mental diet. Now, this is something that's really fascinating to me. And this is something that's been affecting me pretty aggressively in the last year or so. And it really kind of came to a head, I think, um, last month. I think if that's right, or even the month before that. But anyway, long story short, I started realizing that the kinds of stuff that I was consuming in terms of media was just like always negative. Like it was just always like something to be mad about. And although I'm pretty optimistic individual, pretty laid back person, it wasn't lost on me that these types of things were really catching up, in terms of like day to day vibes. Let me give you an example. I used to like listen to a lot of comedy podcasters, because they just are funny and they will say funny things and they make me laugh. And I found that some of them just started to talk about politics and get involved in kind of like this way where they were talking about stuff as if they have some authority and some understanding. And what I'm not trying to do here is to say that people aren't allowed to have opinions about the state of politics and geopolitics. Um, but it is fascinating that that's a lot of what they're talking about. Um, and these types of conversations that I think usually are more reserved for private conversations to allow people an opportunity to not maybe not get it right, and maybe have some other person give them their insight that might shape their opinion organically. But rather, they're kind of built in a way that if they get a lot of attention on these platforms through their podcast, then there's incentives to kind of keep talking about it. And as a consequence of keep talking about it, then they start to slowly but indirectly shove themselves into a echo chamber. And this is not exclusive to one specific group of individuals, but it definitely is a pattern of behavior that I've been seeing even outside of the like comedy podcasts. But I'm using them as an example because it's like they obviously built their audience and their platform primarily through comedy. And so then for them to evolve into a different kind of genre of content frustrates me, mainly because that was my way to kind of escape this type of conversational stuff, because I just generally don't care to think about this stuff often. I have a buddy that would send me very political leaning perspectives on things pretty often. And it was always really dire and really upsetting. And I would always just tell him, like, listen, I understand that governments can be corrupt and businesses and corporations can suck. I don't need constant reminders of this. I don't need to be reminded that this is the case every second of the day. And I found that like a lot of the content that I was consuming um, is this. It's very much a lot of this. And I remember a time when I would be browsing the internet and it would just be full of like interesting and fascinating stuff. And things that would make me laugh, things that would make me think, and really inspire me as an artist. But now my media diet felt like it was just being fueled by constant negativity, which was again influencing my art and my ability to make art. Just like my diet would affect me if I'm eating nothing but processed foods. It was like I was eating processed media. And I started to watch TV shows again, old TV shows, new TV shows, watch movies. I saw like the movie called The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And what I loved about it was it's like this old 2000, like year 2000 movie with like a really kind of 2000s, late 90s premise of like cloning. And it was just fascinating, actually. I was like, this is actually a really cool premise. And it just made me think. It started having my mind wander and being creative. And I was like, oh, yeah, see, this is what I'm missing. I'm like constantly ingesting, hey, did you know that the world sucks for this reason? Or did you know that this person is a terrible person? Or did you know that your opinions are wrong if you think this way? It's just like, whether I agree or disagree with a lot of these sentiments, and whether I think it's important that we should be aware of the peripheral, what's happening around us, I don't think we should be having a blind eye, but it's clearly unhealthy, right? It's clearly like I understand that having a bit of an ice cream sandwich one day is going to be good and tasty, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Just like I think if understanding what's going on with certain issues politically, there's nothing inherently wrong with this, but eventually it starts to become a problem if all you're doing is consuming ice cream all day. That's kind of the way I'm looking at this, if that makes sense. And in this instance, like the ice cream's not even good tasting. It's like eating black licorice or some other kind of dessert that you despise, actually. And when I was watching The Sixth Day, I was just reminded why I got into business in the first place. I started playing a game with my son called It Takes Two. And again, got reminded why I got into business in the first place. Like I love video games and entertainment media tremendously. Like I love this stuff. And I love getting into it. And I love talking about it. I love watching this type of stuff. I love consuming it. And I found that, yeah, my diet was just filled with just the worst of the worst kind of content. And so I started mixing it up. And it's one of those things that even as I go to YouTube here and there is just far too little positive content. Or let me rephrase that. I think there might be quite a bit of it, but it's like I am having a hard time to find this kind of content, and unless I'm, aggressively, actively looking for it. And I don't think that should be the case. I think that the algorithms should recognize that this is a problem. Although I know they'll probably never care because they only care about is engagement. I get it. It's like the bottom line of their platforms. And so if I can start to try to be the solution to this problem and maybe inspire others to start to include, interesting content that people are excited to hear about, and it's like, it has opportunity to transcend and be elevating in some meaningful way, then I need to try to do that more. I think a lot of folks are really yearning for this type of content now more than ever. I think people are starting to kind of just be tired of constantly being on notice. And I think it's okay. Again, I actually don't want to make a kind of statement of like people should not have strong political opinions or perspectives. I think that's fine. I'm just saying there needs to be a bit of a well-balanced diet here, right? Because not everybody wants to do that. And I think some people just want to just live their lives. They have a lot of things going on. I mean, a lot of the arguments and discourse around the consequences of like latest elections and stuff is a result of people feeling it, man. People are absolutely feeling something. And perhaps there needs to be more content to just remind them of their humanity and be chilling, dude. We just chill a little bit more. And I think remind ourselves that we're more alike than we are different as well. And I just remember a time, truly, early internets where it really did feel like that. And don't get me wrong, there were definitely places that were just the most despicable places on the internet, but they felt very much isolated. But now it's feeling like it's more mainstream now to have these kind of unreasonable positions in my mind. And even if you believe that they're reasonable, they're always rooted in some sort of negativity. And I think ultimately that's still kind of bad and unhealthy. And so I would recommend many of you guys beginning to purge your algorithm. Try to find content that's a little bit more optimistic, because there is an endless well of information that will remind you to be upset. And if you're looking to be upset, it is not that hard to find something to watch or hear about that will make you sad, mad, or angry, or whatever you want to feel for whatever reason. I personally do not want to be mad all the time because I have children. And being mad all the time and being upset about things too often tends to trickle downwards to my family and to my friends. And it's just unreasonable. I don't want to spend my time arguing with people, or being mad. And so my advice for those of you who might be feeling this or didn't recognize that this might be happening to you is to look at your For You pages, for your reels and your Instagrams and your social media diet, and ask yourself, is it filled primarily with this type of junk food? Or is it a good mix of the two? Or is it mostly optimistic? There's a good chance if you're watching this video on your algorithm, which it might not have a lot of views, generally speaking, which is totally kind of the case being made here. And I have no interest of changing my approach to making YouTube videos for the greater algorithm. But if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you probably are on the journey of like, I want to learn more, or I like watching people that are talking about how to improve my life. And that's great. But I'm wondering if there's ways we can start helping each other get this type of positive content out there and more mainstream and more frequent. Because right now it's not the best environment. And so anyway, I'm going to stop here. Hope you guys enjoyed the little topic dump and the little paint demo. I plan to try to do this very often. There's a lot of things I want to talk about that are hopeful and advice driven. So I want to try to maintain this now that I have a little bit more time on my hand. And eventually I might not again, and I might have to take a break yet again. But while I'm here, let's do it.